Hello and welcome to 06880, the podcast. When I emailed Westport Fire Department Chief Rob Yost yesterday to confirm our podcast today, he said, "I'll be there unless there's a fire." And that's as good as any potential reason I've ever heard for backing out. As head of the department, Chief Yost is on duty 24/7, 365. He's got one of the most important jobs in town, but I think you're a pretty low-profile guy. So I'm honored that he's here with us today on 06880, the podcast. And I'll start with a pretty basic question. How did you get to be fire chief? Was it a burning ambition from your youth, or did you come to it sort of later?
Well, nobody grows up saying, I want to be a fire chief. You grow up saying you want to be a firefighter. And for me, it was because of my family. My father was the fire chief in Norwalk pretty much as long as I can remember. He was, I think he made chief in 78, up until when he passed away in 98. So almost 30 years. And my grandfather was he retired on the fire department. He did about 40 years in Norwalk, and I was told he was one of the first drivers of the gas-powered fire engine. Him and his brother both lied, said they knew how to operate a clutch, but they figured it out. And my uncle, I have a cousin, so it was a long family history. My father was dead set against it. He wanted me to, every parent wants better for their kids, so he made sure I got my education, and I actually worked briefly in big business. I worked at Xerox for about 9 months, but absolutely hated it. And I had a part-time job in a fire department up around Yukon in stores, and I loved that. So first opportunity I got, I became a full-time firefighter.
Wow. And how'd you end up in Westport?
So I just started, once I realized that, this is what I want to do, I started testing and, filled out an application for any paid department in Connecticut and just started testing. I worked briefly for about a year for the department in Mansfield where I was part-time. And, Westport was the first one that called, which, interesting enough, my father grew up in Westport, became the Norwalk fire chief. I grew up in Norwalk, became the Westport fire chief.
Wow. I am sure that a fire chief does dozens of different things. And I'm sure that every day is different. There's no typical day. But I don't know what you do really. I don't know the scope of your duties. I don't know what a day is like. You want to sort of describe both what you do and what your days are like?
Yeah, so you're right, no day is the same, and you never know what you're going to expect, which is always true of the firefighter. And from the first day I got on this department, you woke up saying, boy, I wonder what today's going to bring. Different sort of circumstance. Instead of, riding in a fire truck, I'm riding a desk. And I'm, it's my job is to, keep the lights on, make sure there's water in the trucks and the fuel and all that, and that the guys have and gals have what they need to do the job. So it's a lot more administrative, a lot of meetings, but it is very interesting. Yes.
Do you still go to fires?
Yes, I do. Not every one. So mostly it's the larger ones where the guys and gals are going to work. So we had that one Friday evening. I was almost home, had to turn around, and after getting through all that traffic, I had to come right back. But it's rare that a chief like in this department would take command. I'm there more of a supportive role. My assistant chiefs, my shift commanders, I have the utmost confidence in them, so I let them run the scene. I'm there more of as just a backup to help them out. And if things do grow to where they're out of hand and they need me to take command, I'll take command. But in the 5 years I've been chief, I've yet to do that.
Wow. Traffic, you do have a siren, right? Okay. You don't have to sit and wait like the rest of us.
True, yeah,
okay.
But sometimes that actually makes it worse. But it does help. Yes.
So what are some of the things that you do that the public would never see?
So I'm also emergency management director. So that adds a lot more meetings. Did I say I go to meetings? So there's more meetings, but that's more of a regional and statewide thing. So there's money, federal and state money for programs for emergency management, and part of getting that money is I've got to attend these meetings and go to these get these trainings and these certifications. So we were spending a lot of time over at like Troop G in the basement. That's where the regional emergency management is. So going that to ensure that Westport gets its fair share of emergency management grants and program money that is available to the town. We did a lot of home elevations after Superstorm Sandy and Irene. Many residents went through the massive federal process of getting grants to assist them in elevating their homes out of the flood zone. That was a huge amount of work, mostly by my predecessor, Chief Kingsbury, but we are still closing out grants to this day. There's still people that have not received their money yet. We're still finally, and we see the light at the end of the tunnel. And then this afternoon, I'm closing out our public assistance grant for Tropical Storm Isaias, which was a year and 3 months ago. So that just shows you how the speed of federal government. But we're looking at almost $750,000 that it's given back to the town for money we spent on all that debris removal.
So that aspect of it, the emergency management, is it unrelated to firefighting, or is it part of it? How do you get to own that, that portfolio?
Tag, I'm it. It is. You're right, though. It is very similar because in the state of Connecticut, by state statute, any emergency, the senior fire officer is in charge of. So it kind of does morph into that. And way back in the day, in the 70s, when our biggest worry was being attacked by the Russians, it was sort of like, hey, you're fire chief, you can add this to your, we can put this on your plate. This is no big deal. Cut to today with all the storms that we've been dealing with every year and all that. It's really becoming it's quite a task to effectively do that and run a fire department.
Certainly your deputy, Nate Givens, is well known for being the calming presence as he gives these reports.
Well, he's my fire marshal.
Fire marshal.
Yeah, my deputy chief is Mike Cronick.
Okay.
Yeah, and Nate's the fire marshal. We made him the public information officer during one of the first storms, and he's, like you said, he's got a background in broadcasting, so it was a natural for him. And yeah, his radio fireside chats and all that.
Oh, they're great. So I'll get back to the firefighting in a second, but in terms of the emergency management, any stories that stand out from the many storms that we've had over the past few years in terms of what you've had to do?
So the role really starts when you're declaring a disaster or an emergency that is not just a fire incident or an accident or what have you, where it's something town-wide. And that's where the emergency management, which is all your department heads, come together in one spot, and we coordinate the response. So I'm basically kind of the cheerleader, the coordinator, keeping everybody in the box, so to speak, and focused on the task at hand, and trying to coordinate the efforts so there's no duplication, there's no keeping it coordinated, so to speak. It's no real stories. Just it's tough. It's very frustrating. You're kind of in the bunker, and your healer. Your residents are calling in for help, and then there's nothing really you could do because it's so town wide, and it's just telling people you just gotta be patient, hang on, and just we'll get to you when we can get to you. It's kind of frustrating.
So the calls just come in, right? downed
Oh, yeah.
wires,
Oh, yeah.
accidents,
Yeah.
flooding, flooded basements, flooded roads.
Yeah. And when the whole town's flooded, it's sorry, we can't pump your basement out because where's it going to go? It's going to come right back in. The whole road's flooded, kind of thing. Or I'll get the call. I want to be first on the list for my power outage. Well, there's no list. I don't turn the lights on. That's the power company. So and they have their own. They prioritize based on their. We want to get roads open for emergencies, but the actual restoration, the turning lights on, that's on them. That's not. I don't make those decisions.
Do people understand?
No.
No.
No. When you're cold, you're dark. You want your devices, and you got your kids are screaming for the electronic babysitter. It's I could feel their frustration, but I sorry.
Yeah. Which was the worst?
Sandy, that had the widest spread. We got beat up pretty good in Irene, and then we thought that was like the worst we were going to see in the 20 years or whatever. And then a year later, Sandy really gave us the 1-2 punch. There was a lot more flooding, a lot more wind damage. So that was a real wake up call.
Scary.
Yeah.
I mean, they're coming fairly frequently.
Yep.
Are you a meteorologist too?
You do learn a lot of meteorology, and because one of the challenges is the ramp up to the storm, the briefings for the Weather Service and the emergency management and the state EOC, and briefing you and saying, okay, here's what we're expecting, and you're trying to say, okay, is it going to be that bad? I don't want to cry wolf, and but then again, you don't want to downplay it, and then so you're trying to tell people, and sometimes we get it right, sometimes we get it wrong, but we always err on the side of caution and say, encourage people to evacuate and prepare, and sometimes it's for nothing, but sometimes it's warranted.
We have a lot of new residents. Do you have to keep educating them and getting the word out about what they should prepare for and how to do it?
Yeah, obviously. When we tell them that, if we're telling you to evacuate, we're serious, and so we used to have a program. I don't know if it's still going on or what, the Welcome Neighbor, where they had a sort of a small basket with information and that sort of thing. I'll have to check with Nate if that's still, but that has a lot of that information. We try to do a community outreach as much as possible when we use the slice of Saugatuck, because we got Saugatuck Firehouse right there, and we do our outreach for flood information, flood safety, that sort of thing. When to evacuate. So we that's probably our biggest push to get the information out.
And a lot of these people have come from Manhattan and Brooklyn, where they're not living in houses, in suburban homes. Is there a different? Westport has so many different elements that you have to respond to: residential, retail downtown in Saugatuck, office buildings. Is there sort of a difference in the calls you get and how you respond to those?
Well, yeah. Certainly we take residential where there's life, occupied businesses, obviously, but, nighttime businesses closed, but we'll prioritize a residence where there's people, in danger. Absolutely. You bring up a funny story. We had a call for somebody thought they were being a chemical attack. They had this strange smell, and that, it was awful, and they wanted us to come out and identify it, and we got there, and they said, "Do you smell it? Do you smell it?" And I said, "No, all I smell is a skunk." And they're like, "What's a skunk?" Because they lived in Manhattan, they'd never smelled skunk before.
So you go back to the firehouse and you tell these stories and shake your heads, but you still have to be polite and deal with the public and calm them.
Yeah. you chuckle at that, but they were terrified. They'd never, they thought somebody had released some chemical, but once we assured them of that, then we all had a good laugh.
And props to them that they knew what to do to
Yes,
call
absolutely.
and
It's the
who
biggest
knows,
thing we
next time
tell
there might be a chemical attack.
we tell everybody, please don't hesitate to call in, and then almost every call I've ever been on, you show up and the homeowner or the business owner saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry to call you." I'm like, "No, you're not. No, I'm not. That's what we're here for. Don't hesitate to call. We want to come out especially when it's small, before it gets out of control."
Are they grateful?
Yes. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. People in this community are very supportive, very grateful, and very understanding.
Great. When I was mentioning before the retail and the downtown and residential and offices, we also have two major thoroughfares, the Merritt and I-95, and the train line. And you have to respond to calls for all of those too, right?
Yes. The train line, although you'd think it's terrifying for me, especially when I was a shift commander and now as a chief of department, we have control over that. So if we have an incident on the tracks, we tell Metro North, stop on all tracks. They stop on all tracks. Wow. I can't do that on 985 in the Merritt Parkway. We try, we block, but people will drive around our blocking. So you're going to notice in this day and age a lot more fire trucks on limited access highways, and it's just for that reason. We will dedicate one fire apparatus to protect the scene from people, not paying attention or trying to think they could speed through or whatever. So we have to put extra apparatus up there just to protect the rescuers, the first responders, the police, fire, and EMS. We're focusing on the injured, the patient. We have our backs turned to the traffic, and if you're not careful, you get there's been a lot of injuries and fatalities with secondary accidents. So wow. Yes, I've got to sacrifice $750,000 fire truck, but that's nothing compared to the life of one of my police, fire, EMS.
Yeah. How has the job changed since you've been in it? Or how has the profession changed and the job?
Dramatically, like I would say almost any profession would say that, I've been doing this for 34 years. It'd be 34 in April. And the amount of change is bewildering when you step back and you look at the amount of technology. When I came on, we had 2-channel radios and no air conditioning, heat barely worked. I mean, it's a lot smaller fire trucks. The fire trucks are getting bigger. The computers that run the fire trucks, let alone the computers that we have in the cab telling us, all the information it's fantastic.
So what would a computer tell you as you're racing to an event?
So it would show me where your house is in relation to the street, and it'll show me where the nearest fire hydrant is, and it'll even give me an aerial view of what your house looks like when when Google or whatever took the picture. But and for our businesses, when we do what they call pre-planning, we will enter information about the electrical shutoffs in this place, the water shutoffs here, the building is sprinklered, it's not sprinklered, it's partially sprinklered. I mean, a wealth of information for that company officer or shift commander can look at that while being driven to the call, can start their planning already on how they're going to attack or how they're, what the information they need to be much more effective.
Wow. So what are the qualities that a modern day firefighter needs? What makes a good firefighter?
So it's still a very physical job. There's so much more technology. There's so much more equipment, but when you get down to it, it's still putting water on fire, and the water weighs a lot. It's heavy, so those hoses are heavy, and the smoke is still there. And if anything else, the smoke and the heat is getting worse from a firefighting standpoint because we are insulating our buildings and our homes to save energy so we're holding in a lot more heat. Wow. The use of synthetics are making fires burn hotter and faster. So, we're keeping up with the demand with the technology and the workload, but it's still a workload. So it's still a very physical job. So, a firefighter is basically a tactical athlete. So you're an NBA and an NBA, NFL, or hockey. You're an athlete, but you never know when game day is. So you have to be in top physical condition. So we have a physical fitness program in the firehouse where we try to keep that. But they spend 15 weeks at the fire academy, and it's like boot camp. They're up there. They exercise every day. I try to go up there and work out with them just to show them that, hey, an old fire chief can still do this. And it is, and I try to go earlier in the academy because the workouts get harder and harder. You don't want to go late. You want to be in there in the first month or so because the workouts are a little easier then. But still, I'll try to get up there a few times with them and show, and they'll let me work out with them. But they're in the best physical shape that they are when they graduate the fire academy. It's my job to make sure they maintain that through their career, because that's the only way you're going to, minimize your injuries and your illnesses, and also serve the town and each other that they've pledged to do. So yes, very physical job, but also very technical. So it's almost like a college level now. The computers and all the technology that we're required to use, the chemicals and everything. It's pretty intense.
Wow. You mentioned the physicality. I know nationwide there's been a push for more female firefighters. I know there's also been a push for diversity. And I know it's hard to do in Westport. How does the Westport Fire Department stand in terms of number or percentage of female firefighters and minorities?
Well, so I have two females, but is no way, a reflection of the community as a whole. So I'd love to have a lot more. It's our biggest challenge is the recruitment, the getting the females and the underrepresented population to come out and apply. So we've made a huge step in that, where we've joined this consortium test where instead of just Westport holding a competitive test for firefighter, we've joined with a bunch of communities in the state, with the thought that a kid living in Hartford isn't going to drive all the way down to Westport to take the test. He might, or she might, take the test in East Hartford, West Hartford, or Hartford itself. But by having that, you take one test and it covers most of the paid departments in the state. Now, when I call that person up and say, "Hey, how would you like to come down and interview for me?" Well, maybe I will. Let me go see. So it's giving the candidates more opportunities to get into departments that they probably didn't think they had a shot at, and it's also giving me the opportunity to reach out to people that historically never took a test here.
Wow. When you were growing up in Westport, and when I was growing up in Westport...
I grew up in Norwalk. My dad grew up
here. You're right. I'm sorry. Firefighting was sort of a job that was passed down in the families, and a lot of the firefighters in Westport lived in Westport. No longer the case, I'm sure. What does it mean when they have to travel and commute to their job and serve a community that they don't necessarily live in?
Well, you can love a community that you don't live in. I don't live in Westport, but I love this town. This town is I owe them a great debt for allowing me to serve them in this way. So the challenge is when I need off-duty firefighters to come back. We call it a callback fire. And yes, back when everybody lived in town, they could be on scene in 15, 20 minutes. Now we're looking at an hour, hour and a half. So the makeup of the fire department historically was we had a lot of volunteers and we had the off-duty paid guys. So we sort of half-staffed. Each fire truck had 2 firefighters on it with the feeling that you got there, you saw it was a fire, you'd hit a pager, you hit the sirens, and then your volunteers and your off-duty firefighters would show up. Well, we don't have that anymore. They live too far away. My most active volunteer lives in Boston, Massachusetts. So, and I only have a handful of volunteers that are active, and so they might show up, they might not. So it's great when they do. It's an extra set of hands, but I really can't rely on them. So we started putting on more firefighters. So my Saugatuck and headquarters companies are all 3 firefighters on an engine or truck, but I still have my Greens Farms and Coleytown are 2-person. So, not is it not the ideal? It's we make work with what we're given, but we really need 3-person companies. I need supervision out there. I need a 3rd set of hands. So we're relying more on mutual aid. So the fire on Friday evening, you saw Wilton was there, Norwalk, and Fairfield, because of the fires are getting hotter and it's getting more. We need to rotate crews, that sort of thing. So we need the extra hands on scene. We also identified we need somebody to stand there in reserve should anything bad happen. I can't, if I put all my firefighters inside the building fighting the fire and somebody gets into trouble, I got no one to go rescue them. So you'll see always one company standing there. Well, they're ready for if something goes terribly wrong. It's that sort of reserve. So to your original question, I don't have, we still call people in because I'm using other towns to cover, we're fighting a fire, there could be another fire. So we always have to have what we call cover companies, fire engines in our fire stations so they're not empty. I don't want to overtax the other towns, so I'll bring in my off-duty firefighters to release the mutual aid companies. They get back to town.
Fascinating. The whole subject is so intriguing. So what's ahead, in terms of firefighting and your department? What are some trends that we should look for or ideas that are sort of flying under the radar?
So, everyone talks about what's the latest and greatest in technology and there's whole trade shows and magazines with everything, but like I said, it's still, it's still getting water on the fire. No one's come up with that magic, radio wave or chemical that's going to, put out the fire and not kill everyone in the building. There's plenty of chemicals that will put out fires that we discovered over the years, but they're also toxic to human beings. So, bad idea. We try to stay away from that stuff. But, we're constantly evaluating, new techniques, new processes. We're hesitant to jump on what's the latest and greatest technology because sometimes that's just, somebody trying to sell you something. But, it's just keeping an eye on the future. The biggest threat to my organization is the weather. It's the global warming. The flooding events are coming more and more, whether it be coastal from the storm surge or flash flooding. We're seeing a lot more flash flooding events, and yes, I've got to go rescue people that chose to didn't pay attention to our posts about turn around, don't drown, and they say they're driving their cars in the water. But more importantly is now do I have the ability to get my fire truck to the other side of that flooded roadway for somebody in an emergency? Infrastructure. Yes, I can say Public Works doesn't need money, give it to me for my department. But if Public Works doesn't replace that bridge and the bridge gets washed out or closed, now I can't get across town. So the days of competing for it should be more of a symbiotic relationship with the other departments for infrastructure. Because, yes, it's a bridge, it's public works, but I need to cross it.
We're all in it together.
Absolutely.
So last question. Anything I should have asked that I didn't? Any message you want to get across, or anything important for viewers to know?
Other than the standard, please sign up for Nixle, with everyone relying on their cell phone for their primary phone nowadays. Nobody has, or I'm probably the last person with a copper phone line in my house, but having the ability to get that emergency alert, as we just learned with the last week's storms in the 6 states, if you don't sign up, I have no way of letting you know, something bad's coming. So if you haven't signed up, please sign up, and don't opt out of it. I know sometimes people get annoyed that there's somebody missing, or there's a silver alert or a amber alert or something, but we need that. Please be patient with those sort of messages. It might be annoying to you, but somebody's lost somebody. So please don't unsubscribe. But if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, because keeping aware of the emergencies is really important.
And how do they subscribe?
If you text 06880 to a number that's on our website. If you go to the town website, it'll show you there, and also the fire department. But 888-777. You text 06880 to that number.
To 888-777.
Yeah.
Could not be easier.
Right.
Okay. We will see a surge of new Nixle followers, hopefully.
Yes.
Chief Rob Yost, thank you very much. I've learned a ton. I hope I hope you have gotten the message across. The fire department of Westport does a tremendous job. You need a sort of branding line, maybe something like, "We're more than just fires." But there you have it.
Absolutely. I want to thank you for the opportunity. Any fire officer worth his or her weight loves talking about their department and firefighting. So this is one of the things I love about the job, is sending out our message and spreading the message.
Great. And it is a great fire department. So thank you for all you do. Thanks for being here, Chief Rob Yost.
Thank you.